Hi, and welcome to the OT is In, the podcast where we merge the worlds of education and occupational therapy to empower families like yours. I'm Sarah Collins, your host, an occupational therapist and a homeschooling parent. I've experienced occupational therapy by supporting families for over 15 years, but also through seeking out support of my own children, so I'm right here in the trenches with you. Though there is not one way to educate your child, there is a lot to consider when individualizing an education. And the goal of this podcast is to explain some of the why behind what an occupational therapist is thinking so you can apply it to your own family. Especially with my three favorite topics: executive functioning, handwriting, and sensory processing. Each episode will be packed with practical tips, expert interviews, and real-life stories aimed at helping you to create a supportive learning environment for your child. So, grab your headphones and get ready to dive in of the collision of education and occupational therapy. I'm Sarah Collins from Homeschool OT, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this journey of discovery. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In podcast. In this insightful episode, I, your host, Sarah Collins, welcome Carol Brown, an expert in neuroscience and the founder of Equipping Minds. Now, this episode delves into Carol's inspiring journey, motivated by her experiences and research to better understand and enhance executive functioning. Carol shares how her personal experiences as a mother led to the development of the Equipping Minds cognitive development curriculum, which is being used globally to support individuals from children all the way to seniors facing various cognitive challenges, and in homeschools across the world, including my own. This conversation explores the vital difference between academic and cognitive skills, emphasizing the importance of strengthening core executive functions such as inhibitory control, working memory, and cognitive flexibility. Now, I do want to mention here that Carol cites research by Adele Diamond. Her study, which is first published in 2012 through NIH, is linked in the show notes. And Adele Diamond's model of executive functioning labels 3 executive functionings, which I just mentioned, and those are then broken down further into subsets. Now, if you've taken any of my courses, I typically refer to executive functioning based on the model by Peg Dawson and Richard Guar because of the accessibility to information for you, the parents. Now, they've written several books in the Smart but Scattered series, and that's what I typically go through within those courses. They list 11 executive functioning skills. Now, though this sounds a bit confusing, the models are actually very similar when you consider all the subsets within Adele Diamond's work. So both of these models, as well as a few others, are linked in the show notes. And I'm also available for questions if you want more clarification. You can find me through my website at homeschoolot.com. You can email me at sarah@homeschoolot.com or on social media at homeschool_OT. Okay, so now we've gotten through this technical side, I want to be sure that you stick around because Carol discussed the colossal impact that targeted cognitive training can have on learning, behavior, social skills, and even athletic performance. And I also share firsthand experience with my own homeschool's experience with this program. So tune in for an engaging discussion on the science of brain training and how it can unlock potential at every stage of life. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In. Today I have with me Carol Brown. Now, Carol is one of the smartest women that I've ever met. I've met a lot of women, but Carol really has insight into how the brain works. She's been motivated by educating herself and her own children, and then also by all the research that she's done. And it is fascinating to hear her speak on executive functioning. So I just knew I had to bring her here to let you hear her talk. Carol, so start, obviously, I'm going to sing your praises, but can you tell everybody a little bit more about who you are and why Equipping Minds?
Wow. So on this very long journey that I won't take you through everything, the last really 40 years, my passion, my husband's passion had been working with children and families who have struggled, whether it's academically, emotionally, spiritually, just in so many ways, which took us from working in children's homes to youth and family ministries to private classical Christian schools to times homeschooling, and then would give us a son who had a very traumatic birth, who we knew needed a lot of intervention, speech,
Mhm.
countless therapies, tens of thousands of dollars. And we had poured all this in. And then when he was 16, he came home and told me, the headmaster of the school, Mom, I can't process it as fast as it's coming at me. I pulled out the testing we had done, and I thought, we've done all this intervention and a lot of remediation of writing and reading and math. However, we have never hit those core cognitive areas, or what we'll discuss as executive functions of processing, of working memory. And those were the hard parts. And so then back in 2009, I stepped out of private school administration and started to look for something to develop those areas. Did not find it. After all my research, I have a background in neuroscience, and that was always my passion. But as we all know, when it gets personal, get even more intensive, right? In that passion, as all parents know. And so on that, I started taking the research studies I read on the brain, on how they assessed
Mhm.
how executive functions are, where those areas are. But one thing that was missing was how to actually strengthen them. It was just a lot
Yes.
of strategies and accommodations. And I thought, he can't do this the rest of his life. We have to
Mhm.
actually strengthen it. And so it's so funny because in academics, we do academic testing and we train academically. With cognition, we do cognitive testing, we look at executive functioning, but we don't really train it. And so
Yeah.
that's what I developed. And that's where Equipping Minds came into being. And there is an entire Equipping Minds cognitive development curriculum. And that is used by homeschool families, private schools, public schools for 2-year-olds to 92-year-olds, from autism, Down syndrome, ADHD, dyslexia, to strokes, to traumatic brain injuries, to dementia in over 40 countries right now. God has granted crazy favor.
Yeah. Pretty
And
good.
on that journey, as y'all know, people say, where's your research? Equipping Minds website and hit the research tab, and you'll find that I needed to go back to school to get my doctorate in education and do research.
Yeah.
What's exciting is right now there's a research study going on at a university with college students to see
Amazing.
how they can increase these areas. There's another one going on at another university for gifted students, for example. So different groups continue to build on Equipping Minds and the research that I did with kids with what's called an SLD, specific learning disorder, who had challenges with dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, or other areas impacting academics. So that's how Equipping Minds came. But one thing I knew was it had to be fun. It had to be fun because, as we all know, when children are frustrated, they shut down. That cortisol
Right.
is released, nothing good happens. And one thing I will tell you, one thing I knew with my son was that when he was struggling, he was really struggling. He wasn't
Mhm.
trying to sabotage. It wasn't
Yeah.
a behavior issue. It's not that kids don't misbehave. Absolutely, they do. But at the same time, but did they really process what they heard? Did they
Mhm.
remember the directions? Right. And so understanding that has been my passion, developing that and equipping educators and therapists and at every realm. But I will tell you all, my heart, I love equipping parents. I love
Yeah.
equipping parents.
Same. Same. All right, so we talked a little bit, and you've said why, and we'll get a little bit more into the how. But
Yeah.
first, so you mentioned academic skills, you mentioned cognitive skills. So
Mhm.
can you differentiate between what those two things are for us?
Yes. And I will just tell you that is where the gap is.
Hmm.
It is hands down where the gap is. Those cognitive skills are the foundation. They are simply your foundation. Everything above that content, and
Hmm.
this is just where we're talking academically. We're not talking about primitive reflexes or nutrition or exercise. Right now, I'm just going from the cognitive to the academic. And what I will tell you with the academic are, because you have the reading curriculums and the math
Right.
curriculums, but the cognitive, or we'll, for today's purposes, look at executive functioning. And what I will tell you in executive functioning, there are three. Did you hear me say three core executive functions? And Adele Diamond is the expert in this area. And the first one of the three is called inhibitory control. And it has three aspects, if you can think of it. And the first
Good.
one being attention. Okay. Can you focus when there are external distractions? The second is cognitive attention, which is that internal, like you just read a paragraph, but you're like, I have no clue what I just read because you have a comprehension challenge, but because your mind wandered, it went off
Oh, yeah.
thinking about something else. And then self-control, that thinking before speaking and before acting. So that's how we think of inhibitory control: attention, self-control, internal cognitive control. And then the second area is working memory. And working memory is that ability to hold on to two or more pieces of information in your mind, to pull up something from the past, to think about it in the future, to listen and take notes, to remember the steps to the math problem,
Mhm.
to remember the grammar rules when you're writing,
Right.
to put all those things together, to hold information. And so sometimes students can know things in isolation because they're holding on to one thing, but then you keep adding that. And that's where my son was saying, Mom, there's too much coming at me at one time.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
feel like they throw a frisbee on one side of the room and I go to catch it and they throw it on the other. And it was just too much. Okay.
Hmm.
And then the third area is called cognitive flexibility. And that's where we don't get stuck. There's a problem and we don't say, oh gosh, I just give up. There's nothing to do. No, you're creative. That working
Hmm.
memory is there. And I will tell you, these all work together. These three areas is what I need you to hear, because when your working memory is strong, then your cognitive flexibility can be strong because now you can be creative and problem solve and think of another solution. You can see that cause and effect. You can see something from somebody else's point of view. You're
Hmm.
not just, and really, the description, cognitive flexibility, it really
Hmm.
defines itself. And so, what's interesting is Adele Diamond, like I said, she is the go-to, and she will talk about to develop these, the importance of music and dance, of sports,
Hmm.
and of play. Okay.
Yes.
Play. And so my biggest passion is the play passion.
Hmm.
Okay. But an area where it breaks down is getting very specific on what that play looks like.
Hmm.
Because we know that children are playing. We
Yeah.
know they might be doing sports or music or dance, but they're still having troubles with inhibitory control, with working memory, with cognitive flexibility. Okay. So it's going in very intentionally. And that's what Equipping Minds does,
Mhm.
going in very intentionally to train those areas. And she's great because she will say, oh, yes, we need to work and train these areas. And you need to have camaraderie and connection with children, which is what I'm passionate about with Equipping
Mhm.
Minds, that you are telling them that, hey, problems can be solved. I'll
Mhm.
tell them all the time, we're going to do this together. I will help you. And that we see our children really as image bearers, as incredible potential, and that we believe there's just a lot more in there, and that we want to see them through his eyes and to develop that. And,
Yeah.
and there's a belief, we have this belief, not for perfection, but no, there's more there. And so we have to be aware of these areas so that we're not seeing them, oh, they're just being bad, they're just
Yeah.
misbehaving. Right now, they may not be developmentally able. And so we also have to be aware that where certain regions of the brain develop quickly, the prefrontal cortex, where executive function is housed, the area of the brain that takes over 20 years to mature.
Yeah. That's the latest,
Over
right?
20
Mhm.
years, the mid 20s, it's fully developed. Of course, it seems, please, sometimes I'm like, everybody has an executive function
Mhm.
challenge. Yes, because
Yeah.
that area is not fully developed, but we all know we can't wait till people are 25 so we go in to train these areas. And then what is so amazing, and Sarah knows this personally,
Mhm.
and I have the joy of working with families doing online therapy, training schools, and hearing how, oh my goodness, after we started doing Equipping Minds, then his reading increased. He could
Amazing.
now
Mhm.
hold on when I was teaching him phonics. Oh, they're remembering the steps to the math problems. My child just remembered the directions the coach gave him. And and so you will see it, what it does, it generalizes to their academics. It improves behavior because now they can remember what you've asked them to do. It improves their social skills because when these areas are challenged, it can really impact social skills and even emotional health as well, because
Mhm.
they're feeling horrible about themselves. Because I'm going to tell you, they know that they're trying,
Yeah.
but they know that, hey, my brain's just not working. And sometimes they'll say that,
Yeah.
my brain's just not working. And so keeping those things in mind, but Equipping Minds, what we have learned through the years. Now, when we started out, you may be glad to hear this. Initially, we said an hour a day, 5 days a week.
Oh my.
Now, what we have learned is 30 minutes a day.
Mhm.
30
Mhm.
minutes. We have schools who they just put it in as a class because
Yeah.
this is the foundation. And once you really start understanding it and you realize, hey, we're teaching the brain how to think. These are critical thinking areas. And that's something, the feedback we'll get all the time as well. My child knows how to problem solve. They're not getting frustrated. They're persevering. Just their whole countenance and being and how it's impacting so many areas. Yes. And
Oh,
I'd be
I love it.
happy if we have time to show you what that looks like just a little bit. There's an entire Equipping Minds YouTube channel, which has, I don't know, 80 videos that
It's amazing. It
that
really is.
you can
The
watch and see some things.
You guys, as an occupational therapist and a fellow homeschool mom, I know how vital it is to meet kids where they are, especially when it comes to learning math. And parents, I hear your concerns about gaps in your child's math education. The fear is real, but it doesn't have to hold you back. So CTC Math, which is the program that we use, is designed with mastery and progress and tracking built right in. So mastery means that your child won't just move on because the lesson is over, but they'll keep practicing until they truly understand each concept. They can do this by taking more questions online or by printing out worksheets to actually handwrite the answers. And they'll keep practicing. You can clearly see what your child knows and where they need support. No more guesswork, no more gaps. The curriculum is provided so that you can trust that nothing is missed. But here's the best part. you still have the privilege of supporting your child's specific needs. Now, as an OT, I love finding ways to make math more accessible and to come right alongside my kiddos. Recently, we just had to turn notebook paper sideways so the lines became instant column guides. This helped him to keep his math problems neat and aligned. So sometimes a small tweak can make a world of difference. And again, you still have the privilege of working beside your children as much as they need it. Now, in addition, the short self-paced lessons reduce that overwhelm and they do encourage independence. Perfect for kids with all different learning needs. So confidence will grow, gaps will close, and you'll have that peace of mind. So visit CTC Math to try it today, because every child deserves a strong foundation. Welcome back. We are actually going to start, I want to share a little bit about my own personal story with Equipping Minds. If you've listened back to past podcasts, you've heard a bit about my son, who's now a teenager, and my son is quite the athlete at this point. A lot of that stems from his sensory seeking and his need to move all of the time. He also, though, really struggled with learning math facts, which then made it so it was very hard to continue forward. Fractions were pretty much non-existent. He really struggled as far as learning to read, and a big piece of that was his vision. But then after that, it was also being able to hold things in his brain long enough to say, okay, at, without forgetting what was at the very beginning. Now, this was obviously a while ago, but we progressed through the majority of those things. And then this year, he was the one who was coming to me and saying, almost like, Carol, it was your son when he was older, who was able to identify, hey, this is the problems that I'm having. For him, a lot of it had to do with, he's the captain of his hockey team, and his coach would tell him the drill to lead, and he couldn't remember how to do it. He also was getting really frustrated with not being able to move forward with math. We talked about he was feeling very stuck without knowing your math facts. An algebra equation takes you way longer because you have to think through every single thing. So we started Equipping Minds. Carol, I think it was after the summer when you and I were together at the special needs symposium in North Carolina. And so we started at the beginning of September. And I will tell you that us working now, he does require the why. And I do want to have you touch on that a little bit, because there was a question at the beginning, like when I said, okay, so this is where you're sticking, where you're saying that you're struggling with. Obviously, we can make accommodations. There's a lot of things that we can accommodate for. However, when you're saying, this is where I am, let's work on those direct skills. There are families who have talked to me who are saying, isn't that trying to change? And quote unquote, how do you do that without making them feel like that they need to be fixed? Okay, so that is a tough thing. And I want to have you touch on that. For us, what worked was I was saying, okay, so here's where you're saying that you're struggling, and here's why. Here's the function that you want to be doing. You want to be working with your coach and being able to lead your team. You want to be progressing with math. Here's your why. Now let's work on those skills. But Carol, before we have you show, which I really want you to do, can you talk a little bit about that? What if parents are getting that, but wait, what, is something wrong that I need to fix me? Am I broken?
I think, especially for athletes, I feel like the segue can be a lot easier in particular, or who's a dancer or a musician, is that don't you want to be your very best at everything you do? And so helping them see that it's just training their brain, which is a muscle, just like they're training other areas, just like the gymnast does. And I think all of us will look on, you'll see something come up on YouTube or on a reel, and you see this young child doing these gymnastics or whatever, that's just, oh my word. Or that person with music or whatever, what did they do? They practiced it. And so it's really not different. We want to compartmentalize our life, we need to see ourselves as whole beings.
Love that.
Okay. And I think seeing the importance of that is like, of course, I want my mind to be strongest. I want to process what the coach is saying. I want to increase my visual processing because I want to be able to scan the field and see
Yeah.
things quicker. And throughout life, what I'll tell adults
Mhm.
is that, you know what? And I love, believe me, if you came in my house, you would see so many books, right? And I was a classical school headmaster,
Yeah.
love the classics, love reading. However, content can be learned at any time, but we have to be able to
Mm.
hold on to that content. And so we have to be able to process things accurately and quickly. And our attention needs to be strong. Our
Yeah.
mind needs to learn to not wander off. We need to know how to problem solve. When people say to a child, hey, just wait, but we haven't done things to teach them how to do that. Just a
Right.
minute. But when we play the games, we actually teach that how to take turns, how to wait, how to stop and think, how to deal with a problem. And then, especially as they get older, we'll tell them how it greatly impacts their driving abilities.
Yes.
Okay, for the teenagers. Oh my word. And we all know as parents how many quick decisions, that
Yep.
cognitive flexibility, that inhibitory control, that working
Yep.
memory when you are driving
Yep, I
is
need that really strong. I have a daughter about she's taking her driver's test on Tuesday, and we literally last week were talking about, okay, it's snowing and you're driving in the snow. What's the difference? So you have to be able to apply those skills again to a new driving situation.
yeah,
It's not just like I drive this road every single day. Okay, but there's going to be other variables. You also don't know about the
right.
school bus that's coming in. You also don't know about the slick road that happened right there. That flexibility is very important with driving.
It is. So those are some ways that because when we know a student
Mhm.
and where we can have that point of connection with them. Okay. And sometimes we'll say, hey, I know some things
Mhm.
are really challenging. It's not because you can't learn math, it's because you can only hold on to two pieces of information right now.
Mhm.
And that math problem has five.
Right.
And we can get that stronger so that that's not going to be a concern. And so you're just helping them understand. But then I'll say, you know what? And guess what? We're not going to do school. We're just going to play games.
And you know what? That is actually a big piece of this because when we started at the beginning of the school year, we put a pause on math because I was like, this is
Mhm.
your math is what is causing the frustration. We are still doing math. We're doing it through Equipping Minds. And then
Yeah.
we were also reading Life of Fred at the same, which is a story form of math just to help him
Mhm.
make these connections together. And then we dove back in and he's flying at this point. He is flying and it is beautiful. So any of that, wow, you took off almost a semester of your curriculum. Okay, but now that we're back in and he's ready for it, it's
Right.
going at a much quicker pace and without
Well,
the
and it's
frustration.
hockey,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
the same thing with hockey. Absolutely. His coach, in fact, came and talked to me. It was about 2 months in and was like, Sarah, I don't like really know what's going on, but it's beautiful. I'm watching Caleb really click as far as what he was calling making quick decisions. You see the puck where the people are that you need to pass to and getting rid of it rather than holding it, scanning around, and someone's going to either check him or they're going to steal the puck from it. He's going to turn it over. And his quick decisions that he was able to make were making a huge difference for his team winning or losing. We call it a mattering player, right? Like he moved into
okay.
being a mattering player. So beautiful. So, Carol, can you just, we only have about 5 more minutes, but if you can roll through something, an example or anything of people who are saying, all right, cool. So now I might understand the why, but what exactly would this look like?
If you go, as I said, to the YouTube channel, Equip Your Mind's website is going to give you a lot of concrete information. The YouTube channel, you're going to actually see a lot.
And
Okay.
I'll make sure those are linked in the show notes too.
Absolutely. And we have our upcoming annual conference, April 14th through 18th in Frankfurt and Raleigh, but also online. Okay. And we have other host sites as well when people like really are like, oh my gosh, I really want to learn this.
Mhm.
But our new Equipping Minds cards, this can be a great place to start. and just see all the connections that are happening in the brain. And they will talk about, as we said, cognitive flexibility,
Hmm.
attention. And so with the cards, one thing you're going to notice is there, it's a color, there's a
Hmm.
letter, a number, an animal with the wrong word, which is a
It
distraction
is tricky.
with the wrong word. And then there's a symbol, and then there are directions. There are 7 things on these cards.
Right.
And so we'll take the cards and they will sort these, and they'll sort them by one quality. So they'll lay the cards down, and we'll usually lay down what are called the code cards. And there are 9 code cards that we have. And then below them, the students will come in and maybe they're matching by color. And
Mhm.
they'll say, oh, green under green, blue under blue, red under red. And but they're working on processing, and
Mhm.
processing speed greatly impacts these executive
Yeah.
functions. I'm just going to tell you, it is so important. And but you may say, my child knows their colors. And I'm like, yes,
Mhm.
because that's how we train the brain. We
Yeah.
only train the brain with what the brain knows. So if
Beautiful.
they didn't
Hmm.
know their colors, I couldn't use that to get their brain stronger.
Hmm.
I would need to teach that first. But then we'll say they'll have their cards, and then we'll say, okay, switch. Now sort by number. Okay, stop, switch. Now sort by symbol. Okay, now the first card, sort by color. Second card,
Hmm.
sort by letter. Third card, sort by number.
Will tell
Okay,
you that was the hardest thing for my son to move from like, all right, I'm doing color, number, animal, or whatever. And now he'll do color and then the number plus one or the number minus one and then animal or whatever. But
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that shifted attention it was really hard at the beginning. And now I'm watching his times go down and his ability to persevere through it, to do it for longer durations of time. It's really beautiful.
And so that's where with the cards, you can just get the deck of cards, and they come with a
Mhm.
little instruction sheet that's very small now in the
Mhm.
new deck that we updated. But it also comes with a 3-hour course. Okay. The
Aha.
3-hour course on how to use the cards with a 9-page handout. Okay.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. We just keep coming up with so many things to do with these. And the same thing when we were talking about the distractions, just one example in the book is the Stroop effect, where they'll say the animal they see and say that as quickly as they can, but then they come over and they have to say the animal, but they have to ignore the word. So when we talked about, oh, there's that distraction that's coming at you.
Mhm.
So just the other day, I had a new student, 8 seconds on set one, 33 seconds on set two.
Wow. Mhm.
And then when they get really good, you can alternate and say, tell me the picture, the word, the picture, the word. With your Equipping Minds cards, you can do that as
Do the
well.
same
Tell me the
thing.
picture, elephant, word, turtle, elephant, camel. Okay.
Also, just say I'm impressed that you could do that through your screen because you're looking at it in reverse too.
Yes, I lots of practice with that. But we just have so many fun games
Mhm.
that as we're doing this, we're working all of those regions of the brain because we're using numbers and colors and letters and symbols and directions, and it's engaging and fun. And you probably, did Caleb enjoy it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And especially because we're playing it together. And I will tell you that I have seen some differences even in my own brain, right? And there are times when he's, haha, you couldn't do that. And then
Yeah.
there's other times when we're both like just cheering each other on. And yeah, we
Yeah.
are very much enjoying our time.
And I think that's what I love as well, because all the parents who do it with their children will all
Mhm.
say, oh my gosh, I didn't tell you this. I could never do mental math. Or
Yeah.
I couldn't make movies in my head when I was reading. And now that we've been doing this, I can. Or I couldn't remember my grocery list or my social security number or just different things.
Yeah, I would tell you for me, I've noticed it as far as cooking. Like I would never remember which steps that I had done and which I didn't. Like I literally, speaking of compensation, I literally would print out recipes I never could watch on like YouTube or whatever to come up with something new. And I would check them off as they went along. And that was fine because I knew that about myself. But now, as I'm going through recipes, I remember them a lot better. So like when I'm baking bread, I know how to do it now without looking at a recipe. But if it's something new, I don't have to print it out and check it off. I just know where I am. I know what steps are there.
No, but
It's
that's
huge.
different. It's
Yeah.
huge.
And it makes a big difference as far as how long it takes how long it takes me to cook and also how much I enjoy it. Because nobody likes to do something that is hard. We
Right.
don't.
And what's true with executive functions with the brain is like you just testified,
Mhm.
is you can continue to develop it.
Yeah,
So
I'm
it doesn't
44.
does not have to be, oh, well, you're just getting older. That's just
Mhm.
what's going to happen. And it's not.
Right.
But Sarah, thank you for allowing
Thank
me
you.
to share. As you well know, Sarah and I have talked, and she knows Equipping Minds. We could sit here for hours
I
and
know.
talk about it, but just wanted to hopefully give some hope, a little insights
Yeah.
to everybody today, and encourage you to reach out. Sarah's going to put the links.
Hmm.
At the very least, get to the YouTube channel, the cards. The kids are loving, and the adults.
Yeah. See?
The
And
cards.
the adults. That's
And well,
right.
because, and I will tell you, sometimes people will say, oh, don't they think they're babyish? Oh, no. Once you get in and you start playing it,
Yeah.
it gets,
Yeah. It's
3 hours
challenging for
course
sure.
isn't, it starts off very accessible to
Mhm,
everybody, but
mhm.
it gets
Yeah.
pretty intense. Yeah.
For sure. Thank you, Carol, so much for being here. And again, yes, I will absolutely make sure that equippingminds.com .com or .org
Yes.
.com
.com. Equipping.
.com is listed as well as the YouTube channel. And if people also want to get in touch with you, is there a good way to do that? Is that through the website as well?
Yeah, through the website. Yeah,
Okay.
you can do that. Absolutely. You'll see that on there. The C Brown at equippingminds.com. There's a contact us.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Carol, for being here.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the OT is In podcast. I hope our discussion has provided valuable insights and support for your homeschooling journey. Remember, as homeschooling parents, it's essential to address our children's diverse learning and developmental needs. So if you're seeking personalized guidance, Homeschool OT does offer concierge services tailored to your family's unique requirements. So these services can provide practical strategies and heartfelt encouragement to empower your homeschool experience. To learn more about how Homeschool OT can support you, visit the services page at homeschoolot.com. Explore the resources available and discover how my expertise can enhance your homeschooling journey. In essence, how we can partner together. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you with us on the next episode of The OT is In.